We'll start with you, Kevin. Basically, this is just a quick introduction, a little bit about your background, the program you're starting, and kind of where you're headed.
Well, just a brief introduction on me, right?
Yes.
Also, my name is Kevin Suazo. I'm right now living in Honduras. Last year, I was a staff member of at UF. I was doing my internship in Gainesville with I was in the turf grass with science lab. I was during like 3+ months, I guess. So yeah, right now I'm in the agronomy online program. So I'm 28, by the way.
I'm not.
You kind of look my age.
It must be a bad connection. Anyway, welcome to the program, Kevin. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I did not have, with all the hustle, I did not have a chance to introduce myself. So you can introduce yourself to us and then we'll introduce ourselves to you.
Yeah, I'm Sandeep Aryal from Nepal, and I have done my bachelor's in agricultural science and master's in agricultural science with genetics and plant breeding back in my country. And because of the interest in my in genetics and plant breeding, I did some of the volunteering in Dr. Rio's lab in previous year. And now from January, I'm starting as a master's student, and I will be working on Bermuda grass projects.
Okay.
I'm Lorraine White. I am the academic program specialist for the agronomy department. You guys will be working a lot with me along with Dr. Sollenberger, Lisa, and Rose as through getting you guys through the process here to get your degree as simple or as easy as we can to make things easy for you here. So any questions about anything, you can contact me also. Thank you.
Okay, Lisa.
I'm Lisa Burnett. I'm the academic assistant with Lorraine. So again, any questions you have about anything, feel free to email or come by if you're on campus.
Hi, I'm Rose Koenig. I'm faculty member in agronomy, and I specifically assist the agroecology concentration students. So vast majority are online, like Kevin. So welcome, Kevin, and just help them, identify a project, find their advisors, and then help them as they choose courses and figure out their plan of study.
Thanks, Rose. And my name is Lynn Sollenberger. I'm a graduate coordinator. I'm also a faculty member in the department. In my role, I interact with all aspects of the graduate program, from graduate student recruitment and milestones to a little bit on curriculum and so on. But in my role, I'm available as a resource for questions that you might have. You also, as has been indicated, interact with Lorraine and Lisa. And typically I would be more, while Rose deals with the agroecology students, I would typically interact with MS thesis and PhD students who are not in the agroecology concentration. So, if you have questions about curriculum and you're an agroecology student, you typically go to Rose. If you have questions about curriculum or committee or whatever, and you're an MS thesis or PhD student, you'd come to me. If you need details on how to register or health insurance or paying fees or any of those myriad of things, you would typically go first to Lorraine or Lisa, and they'll direct you as needed. So that's a little bit about division of labor. I also serve as a resource if you're having any problems in your program. Those can be just personal problems that you need somebody to chat with about your experiences as a graduate student. They can be if you're having issues with any of your colleagues, your major professor, a professor of a course, and you need some thoughts, ideas about how you might be able to handle those issues. I'm very happy to have those. I'm not happy that you're having an issue, but I am happy to meet with you personally and have a confidential discussion about how we might try to resolve those issues. So just to confirm, Sue, you're an MS thesis student and you're on an assistantship.
Yeah.
Okay. So that will help to determine kind of where we go with some of the content for today. So Lorraine, I know you need to head out relatively shortly. I thought it would be good if you could specifically, before you go, address a couple of issues. One is the issue of health insurance, and that would apply to not apply to Kevin's situation at this point, but would apply to Sue. And then the other issue would be fee payment.
Okay.
Because those tend to be areas of significant confusion. And we've had some issues, particularly we had a couple of issues with enrollment in health insurance in recent semesters. So.
And then also just Kevin had asked about, and I addressed it, I think in the email response, Kevin, but he asked about just when he has to pay tuition, which I said usually comes from the bursar, you'll get a bill, and that you will be communicating, you usually give reminders. So just explaining sort of the reminders that you tend to give to students and for them to pay attention to those.
Okay. All right. I'll start with reminders throughout the program. Anything pretty much that's important when deadline dates come up, I am usually sending out reminders to you guys, to your UFL email address. Anything that we do now from now forwarding on will be sent to your UFL email address, and you should use that address when you send something to us also. So I will be that person that sends out those reminders from the beginning, all through the program. There's all sorts of deadlines that come up, so I'll be sending those out to you. Regarding health insurance, you all, when you probably got a letter from HR stating that you had 60 days to apply if you're on an assistantship to apply for your health insurance. Within those 60 days, you have to do that. You will need to go online. It doesn't automatically kick in for you. You have to go online and complete the form that they have there for you and submit it in order for that to kick in for you. If you don't do that within that 60 days or at all, you will have lots of problems that will come my way. And it's much easier if you do that now. But even right now, if you still have questions on it next week or whatever, please contact me and let me know so that I can actually send you out the link where you need to go to it. And it is very confusing, so don't be shy about trying to contact me about that insurance, because we'd rather get it taken care of now than way later in the semester when you're getting charged. And that charge that's gonna come to you is like $1,200 for that insurance that you have to pay. Or whatever.
Yeah, so if you, I don't know what they deduct, what is the biweekly deduction for health insurance? Gator Grad Care.
Gator Grad Care, it's really like, I'm thinking like $8, $12 or something like that.
So you can.
Better than $1,200.
Yeah, you can.
At one time you have to pay.
There was today email from morning from the Health Compliance Center that we have to do within January 18 or something like that.
I think the message is do it now.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
And I don't know
Go ahead
when,
and do that.
I don't know when they're in the system so that they
Yeah.
can,
it's when they get
Once you're
hired.
hired,
Once you're
yes, that's
hired.
the other thing.
Yeah.
Once you're hired in the US system, then you can go out there and do that information in there.
the point is that's an important one. Because once you will have healthcare.
Yeah.
You can either enroll in Gator Grad Care and pay, $15 or $20 a month. Or you can or you can allow them to assign a healthcare to you,
Which is the 12.
which is gonna be like $300 or $400 a month. So you wanna, it's not a small issue. You want,
To take.
unless you're looking to hand out money for no reason.
All right.
Generally,
Yeah.
those graduate students are not in that. So that's an important one.
Yeah, and what happens with that insurance that I learned these past semesters after doing it so much is that when you come in as a student, being an international student, they automatically apply the university one to your account. So if you don't apply for the Gator Care, that's where that big amount that's coming from a month. And so you have to do that, apply. When you get a temporary card or whatever, you need to send that over to health compliance so that they can put that in that system and take that other insurance off of you.
Because you need, for your visa requirements, you need the health insurance, and that's why
You're
they're,
required to have health insurance.
that's why they're charging.
So the take home message is get the health insurance. Any questions you have, check with them. She'll help you. Okay?
As of fees, I don't know the exact date right now, but all next week, the 8th through the 12th is the drop add period. The week after drop add, that Friday, I believe, that Friday, this one fees will be due, that you'll have the tuition and fees. Now, if you're on a tuition waiver, you have just your portion of those fees that you need to pay. Or whatever, and Dr. Sollenberger will show you what that amount will be and how to figure that amount when he starts going through his part of everything. So you're responsible for a certain amount of fees, so on that Friday after the drop add period, you need to pay those fees if you're a graduate assistant. Also, being a graduate assistant, there is a much later deadline for you that you will have to pay your tuition, because we have to get your waiver into the system that you're getting, so that all that will kick in together for you. Okay, and I'm gonna send something out in regards to that too, so you guys can have a fresh thought.
But for Kevin, you'll see in your Gator One, there, when you go into Gator One or One UF, there's a Bursar spot there, and that's where your fees are gonna show. And, follow the directions to make that payment.
So, yeah. I'm trying to think of everything where, that was the most biggest things that we've had, was just the fees and the insurance, whatever, so. like,
You're working with who?
Still on it.
Rios.
Rios.
So you'll be on campus and the schedule will be based on.
And they will send
I'll
you.
show you, we'll show you that.
Yeah, and they will send out, I was told when I was contacting these people in this, they do send you guys out reminder messages too. So again, pay attention to your emails for anything that comes from us or the University of Florida. Pay attention to those emails, and again, if you don't understand what you're getting in that email, please contact me or Lisa so that we can assist you with that and make sure that things get done for you. Okay?
Okay, very good. I think that those were the main things that I had for you, Lorraine, and I thought of. So whenever you need to step out, you can. Lorraine's in the middle of registration and helping students get registered. So you got a lot going on. The deadline is the end of the day today, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
And I'll go ahead. Kim.
Yeah. So Kevin, just to let you know, we're gonna get you registered, and Lorraine will confirm when it's there, and we'll go ahead and we need you to reach out to Dr. Estrada.
I already sent an email to him.
Okay, So when he responds, just send it back to Lorraine and I, just so that we've got the confirmation that it's okay. And if it's not okay, we can change it Monday, but we don't want you to get charged any late registration fee at this point.
Yeah,
Okay,
okay.
And have you registered?
Yeah, I have registered for the 3 courses. One is statistics 60693, and the next is from horticulture department as well as 693 survey of breeding tools.
Okay.
And the next is the research from 3 credit research thesis from the
So just wanted to make sure that you were registered because today is registration deadline. Next week, you could change the registration if you need to, but you want to be registered by today to avoid a late fee.
And I want to make clear that there are 4 concentrations in the agronomy department. And until the graduation, I have to take at least 3 credits from each concentration, right?
Right, so we'll go over the core curriculum issue as we go through the handbook. So we'll address that question. Okay. All right. I would, so just because of scheduling, our department chair usually comes and a rep from the Graduate Student Association. We're not able to be here today, but let me just welcome you on behalf of the department chair, Dr. Kakani, to the graduate program. And also, I would suggest that I'm not sure how active the Honduran chapter is, Kevin, but I would suggest that if you look for emails from the Agronomy Graduate Student Association. It's called AGSA. And it's a group of graduate students within the agronomy department. They look for a wide range of opportunities, just some social interaction, professional development. They sponsor programs. They just do a variety of activities with the idea of creating some sense of community within the graduate student population in the agronomy department. So be on the lookout for emails that come from AGSA, Agronomy Graduate Student Association. Interact. There's no membership dues, as by virtue of being a graduate student in the department, you are a member. So not hard to join in that sense. Okay, let me just give you a few kind of brief sorts of comments. And one of the challenges is that, so the kinds of things that a thesis or dissertation student need to be thinking about are sometimes a little different than the non-thesis context. So some of this may apply more directly to one or the other, but let me just make just a few general suggestions and comments. So one of the challenges for, I mean, both of you now, Kevin, you've had some experience in Gainesville, and so you have perhaps a little greater appreciation for American culture and kind of what Gainesville's like and so on. But what I would mention to you is that, you know, as you engage with the graduate program, you need to keep in mind that this is your program. And so you need to be proactive in interacting with your advisor. And you need to be aware of the requirements that are associated with your degree program. Sometimes there's a tendency for students to rely on their major professor to initiate every contact, whether it be about a graduate committee appointment or what courses to take or a research project. But I would encourage you to be proactive and to be engaging in conversation with your advisor and initiating those conversations as opposed to waiting for them. the reality is that some of our faculty, all of our faculty are very busy. Some of them are more attentive to details in terms of graduate programs than others. And depending on how attentive to detail your particular advisor is, you may need to do more or less of that kind of organization. But the reality is it's your program, not your advisor's program. And so you need to be proactive in engaging the process. In terms of the non-thesis program, some of the initial milestones that you need to be thinking about, and I don't know exactly where you are in this process, Kevin, but you would be thinking about which faculty members would serve on your graduate committee. And then you would be engaging with that committee in terms of establishing a program of study. We sometimes call it a Form 2. But it's basically the list of courses that you would expect to take during the course of your program. So yes, you may, register for this semester, but we encourage you to, again, be proactive in getting the entirety of your program laid out so that it's always very clear to you from semester to semester what classes you'll be registered for. You have a very clear-cut and distinct roadmap for the direction of your program. Case of a thesis student, there are several things I typically tell students that the first semester may be, depending on your situation, but may be the part of your graduate program where you have more free time than any other part, because the research component of your program may be a little slower to get started than the coursework, and so your focus might be on coursework. And you may actually have some time where you start to ask, well, I feel like I should be doing something. What should I be doing? So I'm going to give you some suggestions as to what you should be doing. So as a thesis or PhD student, really what kind of drives the process forward, you already have a major professor and advisor, so that's fixed. But one of the first decisions to be made, and it may be made already, but is what will be the nature of your research project. And you don't need every detail, but the general area of focus. Because once you have that information, then you can begin deciding on your graduate committee based on which faculty have expertise and ongoing activities in your area of interest. You can begin to formulate your program of study, the list of courses that you're going to take, because you'll have an idea of what information you'll need to carry out your research program. And you can begin to write your research proposal, specifically and initially doing a literature review of relevant topics to your research. All of that last part then fits together eventually into your thesis. So the kinds of things that you would be doing in terms of a literature review, developing materials and methods, and so on, yes, you need those to execute your research. But what you write in that research proposal will also then typically show up in your thesis at some point down the road. So it's very productive from a number of perspectives. Again, depending on your advisor and their situation, sometimes those advisors are a bit slow in terms of encouraging you to meet milestones. But we have developed a tracking system now for following those milestones so that all of our students stay on track and don't get behind. So by the end of your second term, so you folks are starting in January, by the end of the summer, we would typically be in contact, or the beginning of the fall, we would be in contact and start asking you questions about who will be on your graduate committee, what courses you plan to take, whether you have a research proposal, prepared and reviewed by your committee and so on. So those are things that you can start on really as soon as you have defined a research topic. And then you continue to work on them right on through your program.
As discussed earlier, my project will be the first, will be doing a phylogenetic study in Bermuda grass core collection from the USDA. And the second will be genomic prediction. And the third will be running different genomic and phenomic models. Because we have the data from the forage evaluation laboratory, the NIRS data.
So you already have a pretty good understanding of at least the general nature of your research and can begin that process of literature review and so on. One other point that we typically make, and Kevin, it's a bit more challenging from distance, but if you are on campus, there are lots of resources and lots of opportunities here to network. And I would encourage you to not be bound by the walls of the building that you work in, but to engage more broadly in terms of interacting with faculty, becoming acquainted with graduate students and interacting with graduate students from other programs. Those things tend to help you build networks that then throughout your career, you typically end up linking back to people that you got to know and interact with during the graduate program. So to the extent that that's feasible, I encourage you not to be, if you're an introvert, you may tend to shy away from some of those encounters, but I encourage you to kind of go beyond your comfort level if that's the case and interact broadly with not just your committee, but the agronomy faculty as a whole and beyond the agronomy department, both in terms of students and faculty. All right, I think those are the general comments I have. Rose, anything you want to add?
No, I would
next?
just say to Kevin, those milestones that Dr. Sollenberg is talking about, you know, every student gets evaluated just in terms of progress. So I'll be doing that, you know, after the first semester. And it's really when you're just taking a course at a time. So it's not a heavy lift, you know, hopefully you're gonna do well in the course and you're, you know, just, you know, getting focused in your program. So don't feel overwhelmed about that because you're taking, you're not a full-time student. Things are still expected, but at a different time scale. So your plan of study will work on it. You know, I already sent you that document now the second time, which is fine. You'll start filling that out. It's much more directed with the online program. And then we'll work on your committee member. Usually by the time you're into your third or fourth course, which would be the equivalent of a first semester as a full-time student, that's when we're really expecting you to start to focus in on, you know, what your eventual project is going to be like. So I just wanted you to not get too stressed out about thinking, oh my gosh, I need to plan a study, but I've only taken one course. So I'll help you. I'm your primary contact, which I've been already. So just keep those lines of communication open and always reach out to me as needed.
Okay. So what we'll do now is take a quick stroll through the handbook. And it's fairly lengthy. We're not going to read it all to you, just to highlight a few major issues. Would call your attention to the, if you Google UF Agronomy and then you go to the graduate student page, you can find the handbook, and then you can also find a whole list of various templates for various things that you will need during your program. One of the things I would mention, and on Lorraine's benefit, is that, I don't know, about 6 months or so ago, we started a process, or developed a process whereby there is effectively a survey instrument that is, I think it's actually the top one of those forms or resources.
So just like, because I just was in it today, so when you go into that graduate main page, there's 3 little tabs. It says prospective students. You want to go to the current student tab. I think, Kevin, you already went there to get that form. The first form that Dr. Sollenberger is talking about, the first link, is the form for getting into that survey. Sorry.
Nope.
I was there multiple times this week, so I can almost like envision it myself in my brain.
Yeah, it's a Qualtrics survey, and so if you click on it, and this may not be applicable this semester, but when you register for summer and fall, that's your go-to place. You just click on that. It's a hot link. You just click on that link and a survey pops up. And you enter your information and what courses you wish to register for. You click send and it goes to a dedicated email box that Lorraine has that is strictly for registration. And that's very useful for her because she gets tons of emails related to a whole range of topics, but these all go directly to that single email box. And so she knows to go there to look and find your registration request. So that's a useful thing to keep in mind. And then there are other forms as well. Okay, so this is all just general information. I'm not going to go through all of that, but there's a table of contents that refers you to various things within the document. And there are some general information here, student clubs, including the AGSA that I mentioned before, other resources available on campus. All right. Just first comment is for SUDEP in this case, because you are on an assistantship, you are an employee of the University of Florida. And so you basically function in that role. There are certain guidelines associated with that. Most students are on a half-time graduate assistantship. Basically what that means is that your sponsoring supervisor, your advisor, can request up to 20 hours a week of your time in exchange for the stipend that you receive. Different faculty handle that differently. Some of them consider that to be kind of your work on your own project. Others ask for 20 hours very specifically in work related to their project or the projects of other students. So that's up to your major professor, but it is understood that 20 is the limit on that. And so if that issue is being violated, then that becomes more of a problem that, you can come talk to me about, and I'll help you resolve that issue as needed. We're dealing right now with this physical presence issue. So I won't go into great detail, but international students can take no more than one fully online course per semester. There are, however, some workarounds for that. And so even though a course is delivered online without in-person meetings, if the instructor will agree to give you an in-person exam or one of the exams, for that class. Or there is a project or something where you make a presentation. That course can be counted as meeting that physical presence criteria. So we throw a bunch of stuff at you today, more than you can remember. But just remember that, you know, it is here. There is some information about physical presence. And probably during the course of your program, you'll be in violation of that rule at the beginning of a semester, and we'll have to take steps to get you in compliance. So if you have issues with that, contact me, contact Lorraine, contact Lisa, we'll work with you to deal with that. Okay, there's information about the FTE appointment. Some general description of topical areas where faculty in the agronomy department work. And then some requirements relative to the degree. This one, for most students, it is not an issue, but for some it is. And so I try to make a point at orientation that during your first term, and in the case of Kevin, you know, you'll be taking courses at a slower pace. So during your first few terms, make very sure that you are excelling in those early classes that you take. Whenever I transitioned from, you know, my high school to college, or from college to graduate school, or master's to PhD, I always went into my coursework with the idea that that first semester, I was going to work a lot harder than I thought I needed to make sure that I did well. And so I recommend that philosophy. Make sure you are just, you know, busting it to do very well that first term. Why do I say that? Well, I interact with students who didn't necessarily take that advice. They did not do well in their courses their first semester. If you are in the agroecology program and not on an assistantship, you have some time to correct that issue. But the reality is that you have to have a 3.0 GPA, a B, in the major, in the minor, if you declare one, and in your overall GPA. There are the graduate school has lots of rules, and many of them can be petitioned, or we can apply for an exemption. Not that one. If you do not have a 3.0 GPA, you will not get a degree from the University of Florida. All the people, Lorraine, and Lisa, and Rose, and I were very nice. And we like you, and we want to help you. But we can't do anything about it. Okay, so nothing can be done if your GPA is not a 3.0. So make sure that happens. You know, get all A's your first semester, and then you say, well, I worked 50% harder than I needed to. Okay, then pull it back a little bit. Focus on your research a little more, but start strong. A couple details, like say, we do need a 3.0. The other thing I would mention on an assistantship, if you're on an assistantship, we will get an email from graduate school if you go below a 3.0. And we will have to petition at that point, keep you in the program. Because if you're on an assistantship, technically you are not allowed to be funded with less than a 3.0. Okay. Now, this sounds all very threatening. Most of our students, you know, are at 3.8 or 3.9. Okay. So it's very achievable, but don't take it for granted. And with that petition, so we will petition to keep you in the program if your advisor says yes. We will petition, but we can only do that once or possibly twice. After that, if you're still below a 3.0, you lose your funding. So that's just the way it goes. Rose?
Yeah, and I just wanted to mention that there are some classes, for whatever reason, that I continually see where students if they're not gonna do well in a course, that is a course, and the one is statistics 1693, which you had said you were signing up for. So if you have a great background in that course, you've had statistics, you feel really comfortable, but if any of the courses in the first semester, if you feel like, even though, your major professor told you to take it, you are not confident in, I would suggest not to take it the first semester. So that is just some piece of information, because that drop add period is so short. And as an international student, you really can't withdraw because you need to be a full-time student. So you're kind of stuck. So just be careful in particular. When you mentioned the two classes, I was just like, maybe wait till statistics is offered every semester. Kevin, I didn't recommend it the first semester. So it's not something that you have to worry about. It's not going to be offered again. So you just may want to have a conversation, and that's all I'm suggesting, and think about that.
It's a course that folks who are more quantitatively
They have no problem.
gifted have no problem with. But some students, statistics is not a friend, and they sometimes struggle. So that it's just something to keep in mind. We don't push you one way or the other. That's between you and your advisor. But we just again, do well.
Do well, especially that first semester.
Occasionally, people will get a grade less than B. So you should know that you get credit, you get graduate credit if you get a C or greater on the course. For graduate work, anything less than a C minus, that's a failing grade. And you do not get, it stays on your transcript and pulls down your GPA, but it does not count to the credits that you need for graduation. So anyway, just keep those things in mind. Start strong, main thing.
And so if it's a required course in your program and you get a C minus, you have to take it again.
Right. And it doesn't replace that bad grade.
Yeah.
It just
Keeps it both on there.
Yeah, it's all right. It gets you coming and going. So I don't think anybody here is assigned specifically to teaching duties, but if you do have the opportunity to serve as a teaching assistant, you can go refer back to that. There are a few things you need to do to prepare for that. Again, so relative to registration and research credits, this would not apply to your situation, Kevin, but CDIP, when you register for research credits, you're registering for 6971, research for master's thesis. We did have a student who somehow ended up in AGR 7979, which is only for doctorate students. And so that got a little complicated. But
Another student come on. Chadwick came in.
Okay. Cool. Hello, Chadwick, can you hear us? Sound is not on yet. All right. You will give this applies to both Kevin and to CDIP, you and to Chadwick as well. But you will, every student is required to give a seminar as part of their either thesis defense or their project defense in the agroecology program. So that happens at the very end of your program. And so during your last term, you register for 1 credit of seminar. All right. I don't think there's some other information there, but I don't think it really is needed. All right, those on assistantship. You are most typically on a half-time assistantship, so you fall into this category. And you would register for 9 credits in fall or spring, fall and spring, and 6 credits in summer. If you are on a full-time assistant, if you're a full-time student. So those numbers are fixed, and typically you will take 1 or 2 classes and then several credits of research. You can take all 9 credits as coursework, but that's challenging. Probably wouldn't be recommended in the first semester. So that's up to you, but and then in Kevin's case, that's, decision between you and your advisor in terms of how many credits you wish to take in a given term. All right, here's the issue of tuition and fees. So for those who are on an assistantship, your tuition is covered by your assistantship, by your major professor, right? Relative to the bill that you will see in your bursar's account, you have 1. Until your tuition waiver clears, which as a new student, it will take a while. I don't know how long, 1, 6 weeks maybe. But that charge for the tuition will show up on your account as something you owe. Don't have a fatal heart attack, okay? Because it will disappear once your tuition waiver is processed. But your tuition waiver can't be processed until you're in the system, and that takes a while. Subsequent semesters, not a problem, but first semester. So you'll see a very big number in terms of what you quote owe, but don't panic. Okay, that includes your tuition. The other thing that I would mention, just to make sure you're clear, is again, for those of you on an assistantship, you are responsible for fees. So fees and tuition are 2 different things. You are not responsible for tuition if you are on an assistantship. You are responsible for fees unless your major professor is very generous and is free to pay them. But most graduate students are paying their own fee. All right, what does that look like? It is calculated here, and fees, if you are on main campus, are essentially $82 per credit hour that you take. So in fall and spring, you would multiply that number times 9, and it's $737.60. In the summer, it's multiplied times 6, and it's $491.06. Yeah. So when Lorraine was talking about the deadline that you would be looking at, which is 2 weeks from today or something, I'm not sure exactly when that is, but that would be for payment of fees. Now, the tuition, don't worry about the tuition part. When you say, well, there's this big number and I don't know what part is fees and what part is tuition, this basically tells you what you would owe in terms of fees. Right, do you want to make any comments about the tuition issue for?
No, Kevin, yours is just 1 flat rate, no fees included.
Okay, and I don't know if you're able to hear us, Chad Wade, or not, but if you are, I would mention that the fee rate is less for students who are at research and education centers. So with your fees, there are certain benefits that accrue associated with this. One is with your UFID, you have free bus service. You just need to show your UFID and you're good to go. So there are certain benefits that accrue to students who are located in Gainesville compared to those who are at research and education centers, potentially hundreds of miles from Gainesville. And so they pay at a lower fee rate. So again, Chadwick, if you're able to hear, your fee schedule is like $25 less per credit hour, and here are the numbers that you would owe all in spring.
I do have one thing to say. So it's going back to that registration form that we talked about each semester that is online. There's two or three questions before you put in what courses you want to register. And those first two questions ask you what type of student you are, whether you're an online student, a residential student, or a student at the Research and Education Center. And the reason why we ask that and why it's so important to make sure you put the right type of student down is that you can see that there's all different kinds of fee schedules depending on what type of student you are. So Kevin, you're going to be paying an online flat rate. You're going to be paying the on-campus rate with the higher fee per credit hour. And then Chadway, sounds like you're at a research and education center. You're going to be paying a lower student fee rate associated with your tuition. And the only way that the system knows what to charge you is how you're registered for classes. So in most cases, I think in every case now, for almost every graduate course you're going to sign up for, if you are not an on-campus student, and sometimes even as an on-campus student, you will have to go through the graduate coordinators like Lorraine to register for class. So that's why never wait till the last minute to register. And depending on the department, they all have different systems by which to communicate what you need to register for. So agronomy has the Qualdrix form. So if you're signing up for an AGR course or anything on our website, you will fill that out for Lorraine. If you start taking a soils course or you're taking something in wildlife ecology, there's somebody else that's going to have to register you. So that has to be coordinated. It takes time. That's why we really request as soon as possible, once registration's open, to provide us with the information that we need to get you registered. And it's so important for you to be in the right section, because if you're in the wrong section, two things happen. You get charged the wrong amount, and that's a problem, and you have to pay more. And eventually the college will come to us and say, hey, the student should not be in that section. And it's a real pain to try to change students around after drop ad. So if you can do anything to help us, it's during registration to do it early and to make sure you fill out the programs, and Kevin, never register yourself. Always go through us, because you should never register because you'll be in the wrong section.
So that's really important. It's unfortunate that it's so cumbersome, but that's the way this system is set up. Would like for you to just be able to go online and register yourself. But there are multiple sections of each course for many specific kinds of students. And so that's just the way it needs to work. All right. Let's see here. Don't think there's anything we need to talk about there. Information here about program goals, student learning outcomes. You can read those at your leisure. Evaluation. So we have kind of changed our system a little bit in that now everybody is evaluated at the end of spring semester. So, if you started in the summer, you did not get evaluated until you had been here almost a year, but logistically, it's just simple to handle it all at one time. So this applies to thesis and non-thesis students. You will be evaluated at the end of your first semester, in your case. So in May, after the semester is over, we'll send out reminders And again, when you go to the departmental site, current graduate student, you'll find evaluation forms. So there is an evaluation form for MS thesis and PhD students. There's a separate evaluation form for MS non-thesis students that reflects the nature of your program. So you would find those in that same location.
So that is something that, you know, it's helpful. In reality, it's your advisor's job to rate you. You can't rate yourself. You have to sign it and have a discussion, you know, that's kind of best practices with your advisor if there's anything of concern. But sometimes it's really helpful to just fill out the first part. And it's a friendly reminder sometimes to your faculty member that, hey, you know, let's get this going once they know. But yeah, so if you don't see that form, it might be helpful to just remind your major professor that, you know, you'd like to get that done.
We'll send a reminder to both you and your advisor with a deadline. But again, that's one of those things that you may need to remind your advisor about because they're thinking about 72 other things. All right, couple comments here, some information about supervisory committee. You can look over those as your general guidelines. There are a few specifics that we'll talk about. So for an MS non-thesis program, so Kevin, in your case, you would need only 2 faculty members on your graduate committee. You can have more if you and your advisor think that would be to your advantage, but 2 is the minimum. The chair of your committee is a member of the department. The second member can be any UF faculty member. For an MS thesis program, you need 3 UF faculty members. The chair, of course, is an agronomy faculty member. You do need a second member from the department. The third member can be any UF faculty member. And we'll talk about the minor in just a minute. For the PhD, if I don't know if we may have somebody watching the recording who's entering a PhD program, but if so, you need 4 members of your committee. Again, 2 from the department. Third member can be from also from agronomy or any other UF department. In the case of the MS, you do not have to have someone from outside agronomy. So you could have 3 agronomy faculty to make up your committee. You have to have at least 2, but the third member can be either agronomy or some other. In the case of a PhD, you must have an external member, and that means a faculty member from another department within the University of Florida. Okay. You can choose to take a minor if you wish. It is not required. It is something that you decide in conjunction with your advisor as to whether or not that's an advantage to you. We do not say that you should or you should not. That's strictly a personal decision. There are certain requirements. Typically for an MS, if you get a minor, it's often 6 credits of coursework. To qualify for a minor, for a PhD, it's often 12 credits of coursework. Okay.
So if I am doing my major in genetics and plant breeding from agronomy concentration, so I have to take the courses from genetics and plant breeding more than 6 credits, or
No, that would only be a minor would be outside of the agronomy department. So I'm just making this up, but let's say you wanted a minor in horticultural science. Then you would need to take 6 credits that, and you would have to have a member of your committee from that department. And that member of the committee would work with you to define what courses you need to qualify for the minor. But courses are either inside the major or outside the major, and major is agronomy. The specific research focus of genetics and breeding. It's inside agronomy, okay? And so any course that you took in genetics and breeding that was an AGR, PLS, or whatever would be an agronomy, count toward the agronomy major.
For example, the quantitative genetics from the horticulture department is in the agronomy too, and
So it would be considered a non-major course. No, I should just say a course outside the major. In some cases, there are students, so you need to have, in your situation, you need to have 12 credits in the major that are not AGR 6971 research. So the equivalent of 4 classes in the major. If you have trouble getting to 4 classes in the major, we can consider petitioning the graduate school to count a course like you're describing, quantitative genetic, toward the major in agronomy. But we don't make that decision. That's a decision that the graduate school makes, and we would have to put together a petition to ask them to count that course toward the major. So we would only do that if you don't have 12 credits in the major. So for example, you talk, the stats course 6093 actually counts toward the agronomy major. So there's 3. The other course you're taking is a Dr. Babar and Al Peters course.
from the horticulture survey of breeding tools.
Okay, so it's not that one. So, but at any rate, you would have 3 credits this term count toward the major. And you'll probably end up taking Dr. Rios's field plot techniques course. That's another 3 credits. And then, 2 other courses taught in agronomy, and you would have your 12. So if you don't get it, then you come see us and we'll work out patient issues. All right. So just in terms of different roles, you have a committee chair. You can have a co-chair if you are a thesis or dissertation student. For whatever reason, the graduate school doesn't recognize co-chairs for non-thesis programs. We tried, but they don't. If you choose to have a minor, you have to have a minor representative. Again, external member is described here. Some people ask if they can have someone who is not a UF faculty member on their committee. It can't be your mom, you don't do that. But if they have a PhD in an area of relevance to your research project, you can have a committee member who is not a UF faculty member. They are called a special member. We hope they're all special, but those are called special members. It's sometimes confused with external. External means outside of agronomy, but within UF. Special means outside of UF. If you want to do that, read over that, contact Lorraine or me or Lisa, and any of us can give you advice as to how to go about that process. There is a process. I'm not going to bore you with all the details right now. There are forms for all the milestones. This is your committee appointment form. It is, again, it's at that link, which can be accessed either from the handbook or from that graduate student page. This is one that you want to take care of relatively early in your program, particularly thesis or PhD students in your first couple terms. You send that form to me, I take a look at it, make sure everything's good, and then I forward it to Lisa typically, and she enters it into the system. I'm not going to talk about readmission, program of study. So this applies to all of you. Program of study is defined a minimum agreement between the graduate student and the supervisory committee. Basically, it's a contract. It says, I'm going to take these classes. Your committee says, great. If you take those classes, you will qualify for the degree that you're seeking. So that's basically the way that works. Again, there's a form for MS non-thesis, MS thesis, PhD. Use the appropriate form for the degree you're seeking. Interact with your committee chair. Typically what we ask is that you submit the POS, a draft of the POS to me. That's down here somewhere. For the preliminary review, point B here. Complete POS template, submit it to me for preliminary review. In the case of Kevin or any non-thesis student, that preliminary review would go to Rose, not to me. Basically, what we're doing with that is we're not going to tell you you should take this class or that class, or your advisor doesn't know what they're doing by putting you in this class. No, we're not going to do that. All we're going to do is check to see if you meet the requirements of the graduate school for the degree. Okay. So we'll look to see if you meet the degree requirements. If you do, cool. Then make sure your committee's on board. Then you send your final POS to me. I'll take a quick look at it again, make sure it's still okay. Then I'll send it to Lisa and she will send it by DocuSign out to your committee to get their electronic signatures. Okay, so that's the process. And that's kind of all elaborated process of the program of study. Okay, here we talk about core curriculum. Okay, and that was a question that you raised earlier. Kevin, for your benefit, core curriculum does not apply to agroecology students. So, you know, you can check your email or whatever for a second. We'll breeze through this fairly quickly. The department, this is a department requirement, not a graduate school requirement. The department requires that MS thesis and PhD students have at least one course from each of 4 core categories. These are the 4 categories listed here: physiology, biochemistry, ecology, management, nutrition, breeding, genetics, genomics, statistical methods, data analysis. So the reality, it sounds like, wow, man, that's a lot of stuff. You know, well, so the reality is that of those 4 categories, almost every student will take a class in 3 of them. So I work in forage management utilization. My students will always take a physiology course. They will always take an ecology management nutrition course. They will always take a stat course, just by virtue of being in my lab. The one they typically don't take is breeding, genetics, and genomics. 1 extra course. Not a big deal. Okay. All right. So there are lists here for each of those 4 categories. The ones bolded count for credit in the agronomy major. Okay, the ones that are not bolded, you can take to meet the requirement. They just don't count for major credit. The other thing I would mention is that these lists are not all encompassing on. So you might find a course in some other department that you would like to take to meet the physiology, biochemistry, and it's not on that list. Cool. Send me the name of the course, a little bit about the course, clip from the course description or whatever. I'll take a look at it. 99 times out of 100, I'll say, go for it.
For example, this HOS 6932 survey of breeding tools is similar with the course with Kevin Canworthy's course. So, but it's not listed over here.
Right. So, you know, that would, you're going, being in genetics and breeding, you're going to take more than 1 class in that area, right? So you don't need to worry about meeting the core requirement in that area. But courses outside the major can be used to meet the core requirement. They simply don't count toward the major. But we're not saying that the core requirement has to come from courses in the agronomy department. They can come from other departments. They simply need to fit into these general categories. Okay? So there are lists here for all 4 of those categories. Any questions about that?
I think it's good.
Okay. Program of study. So again, as I indicated, there is a form for your particular situation. MS thesis, PhD, or not MS non-thesis. So make sure you pick the right form, interact with your advisor. These are fillable forms. So you can, just pull up the form and enter your courses you're going to take. Be aware of the categories. Courses, agronomy courses, these are courses that count toward the major. There's a description of what that means up here. Courses outside the major, like that work course, you're listed here. If you're a PhD student, then there's typically transfer of credits. We have to apply to the graduate school. If you have a master's degree, we will apply to the graduate school to have them transfer in 30 credits from your MS. They don't always give us 30, but those credits then count toward the 90 that you need for the PhD. In case of a master's, that number is 30.
So while doing the masters from the course from my country's masters will be transferred here or not?
So so you're doing a master's here?
Yeah.
Okay.
But
Do you have a master's from?
plant breeding in my country from my country.
Okay,
So
so
if I want to transfer the course, like I have done like advances in plant breeding, I have taken that course, genomics and proteomics.
yeah, I mean, it's probably not even worth talking about.
Yeah.
The reason,
I'm doing the same.
you're gonna be here for at least 2 years in a master's program, I assume. I mean, it's pretty unusual for someone to finish master's in 2 years. You'll have 48 credits in that 2 years. So your committee can look at the courses that you have from your master's in Nepal. And they can use that information to guide them in terms of what classes they think you should take here. But the reality is that you're gonna have 48 credits and you only need 30. So I don't think you can transfer credits from a master's to a master's, but it's not really even worth asking the question because you're gonna have 48 credits anyway. Okay.
Because we have discussed earlier about this with my advisor, so I wanted to make clear.
Yeah, I mean, if you were in a PhD program, then we would apply to have credits transferred from your MS. But I don't think you can do an MS. All right, so there's the POS again. We're looking to have that POS by the end of the second term. If you're a thesis or dissertation student, Kevin, because you're taking courses at a slower rate, you work with your advisor on that, and we wait a little bit longer for those. There's agroecology, no minors, all that stuff is in there. Okay, you can read over the information on professional development. We do have some opportunities for students who are interested in working in industry as opposed to academia. Project team is one of those. This intensive 1-week workshop called Accelerate to Industry is another. So you can take a look at that, particularly if you're interested in job opportunities in industry. For PhD students, you are also required to complete an individual development plan. This does not apply to master's students. We recommend this be done in your first semester. Basically, an opportunity for you and your advisor to assess your current strengths and weaknesses, talk about your long-term goals, and come up with a roadmap for getting you from where you are now to where you want to be when you finish your program. That's the IDP. Graduate school requires PhD students to have an updated IDP annually. So we ask for these again at the time of evaluation, at the end of spring semester, and we will be on your case if you don't provide an IDP. But again, only for PhD students. So master students, don't need to worry about it. If you want to do an IDP, ask your major professor to do an IDP. It's a very nice exercise for project planning, for thinking about how you get from where you are now to where you want to be, but it's not required. You do not need to turn one in. We have a form, obviously. Again, we have a form for everything.
There's a form for that.
Want to go to lunch? We have a form. No, we don't have a form for that. All right, non-thesis degree requirements. This relates specifically to non-agroecology, primarily, I think, I'm looking over it to make sure. But that number of 15 credit hours in agronomy definitely relates to non-agroecology. So we do have, you can get a non-thesis agronomy degree that is not in the agroecology concentration. Here are the requirements for the thesis degree. Again, 30 credits. You end up taking more than 6 credits of AGR 6971, but only 6 show up on your program of study because only 6 count toward the degree. Okay. Need a minimum of 12 credits in the major. You need 1 course from each of the 4 curriculum areas. So those are your requirements. You have to give a seminar when you finish. And you do have a defense at the end of your program. So here's some goals in terms of time frame for where you might achieve certain milestones. PhD, similar kinds of information. Here again, talking about transfer of credits from a MS if you have an earned master's. Seminar, and I don't know if we have, let's see. Sishpreet would be one who is a master's student here who's now joining the PhD program, but relative to the core requirement, I'm not sure this applies to anyone, but if you've done a master's and you have coursework that meets the core requirement, then you do not need to retake a course in that core requirement in your PhD. You can talk to your committee relative to the courses that you took in Nepal. And if they wish to say that, and we're not trying to create redundancy here, we're just trying to create a well-rounded student. So if you and Dr. Rios wish to talk to your committee and say that, okay, I took this specific genetics course in Nepal, can I consider that to meet my core requirement? If they say yes, that's fine. You don't get credit hours for it, but it can be considered to meet your core requirement if the committee agrees. In that case, whenever you submit your POS to me, include in your email that, I took this particular course during my master's, the committee has considered this course and feel that it meets the core requirement in a particular area. Okay, requirements for the PhD are there. Anybody who applies to can read that. Stuff about the final term, I don't go into that because you're not going to remember it. You can look here and read it, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, whatever. Maybe you have a photographic memory. You remember everything you've ever seen. That's cool. I don't suspect most of you do. List of graduate courses in agronomy are here. Notice that it's not just AGR, but ALS, IPM, PLS, all those courses count toward the agronomy major. Here specifically are CALS courses that contribute to the agronomy major. So You'll notice that the ALS prefix, ALS means agricultural and life sciences. That's the name of the college. So all of those courses would count toward the major. Biochemistry, this course counts toward the major, even though it has a BCH. Stat 6093 applies, counts toward the major. You don't need to worry about certificates, not relevant. There are scholarships. I had a student recently that asked me about, is there any way to get additional funding to supplement my graduate assistantship? So CALS has a scholarship program. These scholarship applications are typically due, I think, now on the 1st of April. But you might want to check in and see if you are qualified to apply. There's a bunch of other stuff there in terms of travel scholarships and other things. All right, that's where we stop.
I wanted
go ahead.
to make one point going back to certificates. And this is a comment not just for the certificates in agronomy. And part of this, I think the reason why it's not clear maybe in our handbook is there's been a recent increase in students interested in certificates. And there's a lot more certificates rather than, many students are doing certificates rather than minors now at the graduate level. So certificates are an additional credential, a separate credential, but they are also part of your graduate program. So you can say, look at the CALS website and it lists all the certificates. And basically certificates are usually 3, 4, or 5 graduate level courses that are part of a program that typically builds skills or knowledge in a very specific area. Good example is like GIS and information systems. You have to apply to that program. It's a separate application process. And if you work with your committee, I'm assuming, especially students that are on assistantships, if your committee agrees, there's no reason why that can't be applied to some of the credits that you take. I mean, maybe it's not typical, but it's definitely an option. And same with you, Kevin, there's nothing that stops people from doing an additional certificate. It doesn't have to be linked to your graduate program. It can be linked. You know, some of those courses can be counted. So just if you decide that might be something of interest, I would just kind of explore those very early and see if it can't be incorporated, if that's your goals. But there's a lot more every year. There seems to be more and more. We have a few. It doesn't, in my opinion, doesn't make sense to do it in agronomy because certificates are really things that you enhance your program with. And most of our certificates are the same courses that you're taking, you know, so it's like, it's not really appropriate to take it in agronomy as a graduate student, but it's a way to build expertise, I think, similar to a minor.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So you evaluated based on, okay, so is this credential going to help me in terms of making it more attractive for a particular kind of job that I might want to work?
Some people are taking the 3 courses anyway, and they decide, I might as well get the certificate. You know, they even do it. They realize that, oh, I took those 3 courses. I can apply for the certificate and I have another. So just be aware of those things.
Yep. Okay. I think that's pretty much all the input I have. Lisa, anything that sticks out that you'd like to mention to the?
No, just a follow-up to what he said about the milestones, the thing and what Lorraine had said, when we contact you, there's a reason behind it. And if we put a deadline on it, there's a reason behind that as well. And it helps us help you if we can meet those deadlines or when we need something into us. And we'll be working together closely for the milestones. It's, you know, we're newly developed this program to help keep all of you on track with as least amount of bother as possible. So that's why we'll be contacting you as we go through the semesters at different times for different things.
So I just had a couple more top things that I just want advice wise. Communication is expected. It needs to be initiated, especially by students, if they're really excited about a class and they just want to talk to the faculty member because you're just really interested in the research, that's always welcome. If you're not doing well in the class, it's really important because they're going to give you some advice in terms of how you can sort of maybe make some corrections so that you do better. They're always welcome to work through a problem or work through in their office hours, things that you don't understand. Be proactive about it. Don't wait till the day before the exam, to approach a faculty member. As soon as you feel like you're falling behind, that's when you really have to be more proactive and communicate. If you feel like you're failing a course, I know it's never a good thing to admit to yourself. Communicate to the faculty member, and you probably should communicate to your major professor, or in the case of like an agroecology student, to me. Because there are things that you can do to minimize that impact. And you can do that at certain times, and sometimes it doesn't cost you money, sometimes it does cost you money, sometimes it affects your GPA, sometimes it helps, won't affect your GPA, but it all has to be done in a timely fashion. And timely fashion is not the last week of class. So, commonly students find themselves, especially the first semester, just a little unsure, and maybe not doing as well as they thought. So really communicate. It's better to, you shouldn't be ashamed. This is just part of kind of the process of taking on new challenges. And as Dr. Sollenberger says, most students do fine, but a lot of them, I call them hiccups. And that's all we want to keep it. You know what a hiccup is? It's just like, when you have your stomach goes into it. So we want hiccups, maybe a little bit of a speed bump, but we definitely don't want like a detour or a fall, because we cannot deal with that, right? So that's what I'm saying, like nobody's perfect. We all have challenges. Communicate when you have those challenges, we can help fix. We can't do that last minute. We can't do that at the end of the semester. We can't do that the day before an exam. So just be really proactive. And if you do that, I promise you, people are really kind. They're really nice.
Really appreciative.
They're really appreciative. They're really out there to help you. So the best way to, they love you more,
Yeah.
but they really don't like it when you come at the last minute. So those are my biggest advice is, get to know your faculty, get to know even, Kevin, online, I've heard some really positive things that people do they develop relationships. Every program is what you make it. So this is your one opportunity, take advantage of it. And I know you guys will make it work for you in the best way possible. And we're here to help.
Okay, any questions?
That's all.
All right, Kevin, you have anything for us?
No question for me, no, but just kind of appreciate your counsel and about your help. And, yeah, I mean, I agree, communication has to be very important in this part.
All right, very good. Well, I think that wraps us up. Just know that we are here to serve you and to help you along the way. So don't hesitate to contact us at any time, and we'll be glad to interact with you.
And just one thing. So Kevin, I don't think we need to meet. I think we'll just get you registered and then let's set up, just send me an email. We'll meet Monday, okay?
I already got an email that I already got registered. Yeah, I already got the email from Lorraine.
Okay, so let's just I'll send you an email. We'll talk on Monday. This way you're all set. Okay.
Okay.
All right, very good. Chadwick, I saw your chat a little bit late, but I did see it. So thank you for sending that. All right, everybody. Good to see all of you, and have a good rest of your day. And I hope you get off to a great start in your graduate program.
Thank you.